This is the master bedroom of the basement development we're working on. I'm going to show you how to do the rough-in electrical. In the basement we've got planned for one light switch, 2 lights, and 5 plugs. The reason why I'm showing you the bedroom is that with the bedroom you need an independent breaker, an arc fault breaker, so it's something that I can show you kind of all in one setup rather than going through the basement and showing you a bunch of confusing stuff. The bedroom is kind of gets done with one breaker, brought back to the panel, tied into an individual breaker. So let's get started. I'm going to, I've got my pen here, tape measure. I'm going to do a layout for where I want my plugs to be. I'm going to get the vapor barrier and insulation out of the way, mount my boxes everywhere that they're going to go, and then drill my holes, pull my wire, and should be done what I need to do. This door here is going to swing open this way, so I've got a perfect location here for some switches. I like the top of my boxes to be at 42 inches. So I'm going to measure off the floor. Give myself a little felt mark for the switch. Now, my local building code suggests that I can't have any receptacles or plugs, as you know it, further than 12 feet apart. In this layout, for convenience, and I suggest this for anyone viewing this, that it's better to put a couple more in than not have enough. The worst is putting a bedroom in with a nightstand and not having a plug there, running extension cords. So I'm going to go a little closer than you normally would go. Basically, I'm going to start with my first plug right here on this, and I like to put those at about 16 inches to the top. So I'm going to mark it there. Now, here's what I'm talking about. 12 feet is further than this length of this wall, so I technically don't have to put a plug in until around here, but I think for convenience I'm going to add another one right on this stud here. Again, pull up my tape measure, mark the 16 inches for the top. Okay, now through here, because I've got the vapor barrier, we've obviously got to pull this vapor barrier out of the way, get the insulation out of here so that we can do our marking layout and drill our holes. So I need to grab a knife. Okay, so in our electrical layout, we're here at the exterior wall where we've got our insulation and vapor barrier. We need to remove the plastic out of the way as well as the insulation so that we can get the wiring in there. To do so, just grab your utility knife. I like to stay a couple inches off the ground. When I repair this back in, I'll use specified tape to retape the vapor barrier back together so it's acceptable by code standards, and go from there. This will be the final location of my last plug, so I don't need to cut any of this out. But now that I am flipping it up, I'm going to cut on the stud. To about the height of where the bat line is, and now I can flip this Now that we've got our vapor barrier cut and able to pull up, I just grab my hammer tacker, stapler, and just gonna tack this poly out of our way. Okay, now that all the poly's up and out of our way, I'm gonna remove these bats of insulation. Okay, now that's complete, I'm going to get these out of the bedroom so that I've got space to drill my holes to run my wires. Now that we've got our insulation removed and our poly lifted up, I can finish the receptacle layout. Our last receptacle is right here, marked in the red. I'm going to add another one right here. Then one more right here. And finish off with one right here. So now that you've got I've got my 5 receptacles laid out, I'm going to proceed with mounting the receptacle boxes so that when I drill my holes, I'm not drilling any holes interfering with where the boxes need to be mounted. Okay, so this is the box I'm going to use for the light switch. It's identical to the boxes I'm going to use for the receptacles. I'm just going to show you a quick review on how to install it. So they've got some holes on the inside so that you can put some screws in on that angle. What I like to do is put the ones in at the top here, so, and one in the bottom. So stick your box on your line, hold it with your thumb. Your drill handy. All right, and that's a firmly mounted receptacle box. This is an exterior wall where we had the vapor barrier and insulation through it. When you're mounting a receptacle in that wall, it needs to be vapor barrier protected in a sleeve as well. So what I do is, this is a poly pan made exactly for this size box. Set it in its rough location and put a couple staples in it, and then come into here. And this is where those inside mounting screws that you saw earlier come in handy, because I could just go inside the box, installing it that way rather than having to try to pull the plastic out of the way to get the screws in. And there you have it. Poly pan in. When the vapor barrier comes back down, I'm able to seal around this, creating no air loss between the electrical box and the poly pan. Next, we're going to go finish installing the rest of the boxes throughout the room and get ready to start drilling. Okay, so this is an octagon box. It's meant for lighting and has several other uses, but in our case, we're gonna use it to put up our rough-in for electrical light. So here's our indicator point, creating from center to center and center to center. So using the same screws as before. Hold up the box on center. All right, nice and strong. Got one more light on this side, so exact same thing. Here's our indicator point. And there we go. So we're complete with boxing out our room. So we've got a switch, 5 plugs, and 2 lights. Next procedure is to bring out our drill, start drilling through the studs so that we can pull our wires through. Okay, so now we're ready to drill out for the wiring to go through the studs. This is a screw tip auger bit. The screw tip goes into the wood and actually pulls the bit with it, so it enables quite a bit easier drilling. Can be picked up at any local hardware store. So here we go. Okay, so now here we have a situation where we couldn't keep drilling because it's going to come into the window. So we're going to drop the elevation of our holes and carry on through. I want to just show you the height of these boxes. Doesn't allow a lot of space up here to drill the holes either. So I'm likely going to pull the wires underneath these boxes through this section where the window is, and then jump back up for the rest of it. Looks like I've hit a nail in there, so sometimes you got to make some adjustments and okay, so we've got all our holes drilled now. We're using a 14-2 Lumex wire. I'm going to start by fishing it through some of the holes in the TGIs or the floor joists at the panel location, bringing the wire to our first switch box and continuing on through to all the plugs. What I've got going on here is I hang my wire reel so I can get my wire quite easily, rather than leaving it on the ground and trying to uncoil it all apart. From our wire reel attached to the wall there, I started at our panel, up through a hole in the floor joist, started coming along this joist here. I'm going to be stapling it along this beam, all the way to here. Then you can see the wires loop down, going towards our switch, which is right here. At our switch location, keep on following through, and bringing it all the way back to our last plug. Now what I'm going to do is get my staples. These are electrical Lumex staples. Now this has got a S2 on it. That's meant for stapling 2 wires to the stud. This one's got a S1. So in this situation here, where it's just one wire, I'm just going to use a S1. Tack it on like that. That'll be my service loop. And this is a long enough wire to do what I need to do. So from here, I'll carry on. So from that plug, I come back to this one. That's right here. Now this is where S2 staple comes in handy. So I leave enough wire. I'm going to staple it to the side, and I leave enough wire. See how that wouldn't be enough, right? So I've got to got my service loop and my extra wire. So that is enough wire. And there we go. So I'm going to go through the rest of this room, doing the same thing with the stapling, all the way back to the panel to get all the wires neatly tucked into the spaces, and then we'll go through cutting these wires into the box. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is here's a 14-2 wire. I've got my home run feed from the panel going into the switch. Now I've got my out to the plugs heading that way. Now I'm going to run this wire to the lights and to the second light and back to this switch. So I'll have 3 wires at this switch, one going to the panel, one going to the plugs, and one going to the lights. All right, here we are, the light. So I'm just gonna get some S1 and S2 staples again so I can start stapling at our last location, which is this light. Staple back to the second light, and then down to the switch, cut the line, and I should be ready to start tying in the boxes. Okay, now no stapling required through here. Just have to snug up the line. And back to here. Now in this situation, because we got a skinny 2x4, I'm going to use, I've used S1 staples to staple down through here. I'm just going to use a S2 staple and go right over both of the wires, and that way I'm keeping it nice and tidy. Okay, another thing you'll notice here is I don't want to make my service loop here and come through here because I've only got 2 holes at the top to put these 2 wires through. So I'm actually going to run this wire down below and come up through the bottom. And there we go. So now we're here at the switch box. This has got 3 wires, as we spoke of earlier. One's the home run feed for the power from the panel. One's going to the plugs, and one's going to the lights. Gonna strip about 6 inches of wire. Now, I know that this is roughly 6 inches long, this body of the knife. So I just hold in like that. Snip it back and just go into the jacket a little bit. Like, you don't have to push hard to get through the jacket, and then you can pull it off just like that. Nice clean cut. Now I really like to match all my wires so I can line it right up with the last one I did. And again, the ground wire is right in the center, so that's how you know you're not gonna slice these wires. You got to pick the center of the wire. You push your knife through, and then you just got it straight down. Okay, and last. Okay, so there we go. Those are the wires that I'm gonna feed in through the box and have sticking out. I just want to explain the service loop now. When I put these wires down through these holes, there's a couple of clamps inside there. You want about 1/4 inch of the jacket to stick past this clamp when you tighten it down. Now, if during drywalling or any other procedure throughout the construction where one of these wires gets nicked or broken and there's not enough to hook up the device to it, they can loosen the clamp and feed more of this service loop through to be able to get another 6 inches of wire to be able to attach to. So, service loop, good idea. So there's always these tabs on the box. You just take off the ones you're going to use. In this case, I'm using the 2 at the top and 1 at the bottom. I'm going to start with putting this bottom one in since I'm down here. What I'm doing there is just tightening the clamp down onto the wire. Just snug, you don't need to pinch it in there too tight. Another thing I like to do is hook up my ground to the ground screw right away. You can have a look in there. So you can see right there I've got the 3/16 to 1/4 inch of jacket sticking through, and I've got my copper bare line, the ground wire, on the ground screw. Now whenever you're looping electrical wires onto screws or twisting on morettes, you always go and put this around in the clockwise direction, which would be the way I'm tightening it down. If I put the wire around the other side and then I tighten it this way, it's gonna roll the wire off the screw, not enabling me to get this nice of a hold. So, okay, so that's the bottom one. Okay, get those sitting equal. Okay, so all these wires are attached, held into the clamp in the receptacle box. So I like to take the ones from the bottom, give them a nice bend in there, and stuff them in as far as you can, so they're not going to get disrupted by the drywallers. They have a special tool to trim the drywall around the electrical box, but it involves navigating by sticking it in here first to find an edge and then jumping it around and then going around the perimeter of the box. When they stick that in, sometimes they grind these wires and will ruin them. And again, that's why the service loop and why you want to tuck them in. Okay, so we're at our first plug location. Again, when I was running the wires through, I've got these loops. To start, just cut off your loop end. It's best to not cut right in the center there, because then you're gonna have some bent wires that you will never get straightened back out. So just come in a little bit. Again, I use my knife handle as a guideline. Right in there like that. Line it up again with the other one. Okay, so I've got my wire jackets off. Again, I'm gonna take out these tabs on top of the box. Okay, so basically this wire here is the one from the home run feed. This one is going to the next plug. I like to keep them in order, so I just kind of, I don't know, it's just good practice, you know what's going on. Fish them through. I'm gonna lean over and make sure I got just that 1/4 inch of jacket sticking through. Clamp down, make sure you're good and tight. Separate your jacketed wires up so you can get your grounds on. And tighten your ground down. Okay, take your wires. There we go, all tucked in for safety. Clean up your loop a little bit. And that's plug roughed in.